When a customer comes to me at the bank, I want them to feel like it's on a personal level. A lot of my existing customers, I feel like we're more family than just a customer-banker relationship, and that I'm doing everything I can to help them. And when they leave my desk, I want them to say, wow, that Shelly Kearns at Happy State Bank really cares about me, and I want them to tell their friends and family that.
Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, and I'll turn it over to our city manager, David.
Thank you, Mayor. We have with us today Mr. Shaw, formerly known as the PID Master. And he may have the new PID Master with him for assistance. Once we complete the minutes, item number 2, number 3, number 4 are the first 3 of your PIDs, your Public Improvement Districts, to bring their budget forward to you. As we've talked before, these are defined geographical areas that typically have improvements in the public rights of way that are above and beyond what the city would provide and or maintain. Accordingly, these groups then pay for, through an assessment process, the maintenance of those areas. There are 7 in town, 7 PIDs total. Here's 3. You'll see the next 4 coming to you next week. This also helps us get ahead in the budget review. So, Kelly, if you would take us through those 3, please.
Sure. For those who haven't met her yet, this is Carolyn Back. This is her second round of going through the PIDs. So she's becoming very fond of them. And but
if you're the PID master, is she the PID mistress?
She might be. You need to change that name.
Go to Princess. How's that?
PID princess. Okay.
You might not like the abbreviation for that, though.
Yeah.
All right. We just to give you a real quick background, every year the state statute requires a public improvement district to establish an annual budget and a 5-year service plan. The annual budget determines the assessment amount, and then the 5-year service plan is to give an idea of over the next 5 years, a general guideline of what you're looking at, so you're able to look at things like maybe possible increase in assessments that might be needed, those kinds of things. So that's what we do around this time of year every year. And we have 3 for you today. We have another 3 scheduled for next week, and then a 4th at a later date. It's the one that just got established, and they really have no budget, but we'll get into that later. What we do is we give Parks and Recreation to give us an estimate on what the maintenance and operation costs are going to be. That's based off of what it was last year. We get that information, then we also add on to that administrative costs, like an administrative fee, what it costs to mail out notices, those kinds of things, and then we tally that up and we get a cost for that year. We present that to the board for that public improvement district. We ask them for a recommendation, and then we bring it to you. You are the final decision maker on the assessments that will be charged to the property owners. And almost every public improvement district that we have has a different assessment method, so I'll go over those as we talk about each one individually. The first one in your packet is the colonies, and I wanted to, right off the bat, point out 2 corrections that we are asking you to recognize today. And basically, let me go through the assessment ordinance. We have an assessment ordinance, and then we have an exhibit, and basically those are templates so that all of us are used to seeing the same thing every year. We basically just change the dates and the numbers. So as far as colonies goes, what we do is we have an annual maintenance. The easiest way to look at this is if you'll turn to the annual budget and the 5-year service plan. It looks like this big spreadsheet. I know the numbers are small, but this has everything. If you'll look under the column that's directly under the proposed 2011-12 year at the top, Those numbers directly under that is consists of the maintenance and operation costs, which total $158,484. Then right below that you have administrative costs, which including a $32,750 administrative fee. I'd like to tell you about that really quick. If you look at the year before, that was $16,112. That was, we have never, since the inception of any of these public improvement districts, charged for any of city staff's time. There's a lot of people that are involved in it. There are several people with Parks and Recreation who are involved. Myself, Carolyn, Dean, Marcus, Michelle. So there's a lot of staff that are involved in this process in one way or the other. We felt that, and we had talked about this to the PID boards several years leading up to last year, and said we feel like we just need to, given the revenues what they were in time being spent, we needed to charge something to reflect staff's time. So we did a study, tracked our hours, mainly mine and Carolyn's, and one Parks and Recreation staff member. We came up with the amount of about $32,000. That was a lot, and we decided to maybe just charge half that, have another year under the belt of actually tracking the hours to see if that was accurate, and it came out to about the same thing. So we are incorporating that amount as an administrative fee to charge the PIDs for the administration of these dollars. So that's where that figure comes from. When you add the
And that's
maintenance,
going to be per PID.
Yeah,
that's for this PID. We tracked hours for all the PIDs. Some of those PIDs are smaller and we don't spend as much time, but
But you're doing it for all of them?
we're doing it for all of them.
Okay.
And this is the first year that all of them will pay the full administrative fee. And,
What's the feedback from them?
well, when they saw that number, that's quite a bit of money. We were the only city that has public improvement districts that I'm aware of that doesn't charge for the administrative fees. And so we tracked our hours, and again, we talked about it at least 2 years before last year, that at some point we really felt like we were going to need to do this. And so that's why we did half of what we thought last year, but this year it came out to about the same, so we are charging that. And they, for example, colonies, we always give them the option of you can always hire somebody else to administer your public improvement district. We would just present the budget and the 5-year service plan to you, or they could disband the PID if they wanted to. There's a way to do that, but in every instance so far, especially the colonies, they're very adamant about it. They think the city runs that public improvement district and oversees it and administrates it better than anything that they could possibly do on the private side. And they do not want us to drop them. That's what they're scared of, actually.
Can you clarify? I always am a little bit fuzzy about the difference between the homeowners association and the PID. Can you clarify that for me just a little bit?
Sure. The homeowners association is a separate entity that's set up for lots of different neighborhoods. And they're usually charged with homeowners association fees for, whatever aspect it may be.
Deed restrictions, architectural control,
Right.
like that.
Your normal covenants, conditions and restrictions, they're the ones that enforce a lot of those type of things. Public Improvement District is an entity that's created for the sole purpose of assessing property owners for the maintenance and operation of common areas or public spaces, for whatever those public improvements are. Here in Amarillo, public improvement districts here have been used for a lot of the times, or the residential subdivisions, just for greenways and medians and landscaping and entry features, those kind of things.
But it would be those on private or public property?
Private.
No, the PID improvements are on public property, and they're improvements above and beyond what the city
Would know
will
what
do.
it
So like for the colonies, those big entry features.
Yeah.
Clock tower.
Clock towers, I think there's a fountain.
That's public property, and so the homeowners association and any common owned area that was owned, that would be the responsibility of the homeowners association.
Yes. city would not do that.
Okay.
So do places like Colony's have homeowners and a PID?
They,
Okay.
not only do they, we require it because we allow all of these improvements to go within the public right-of-way. So if for whatever reason they want to disband the PID, we require a homeowners association to be in place to have a mechanism to fund the maintenance and operation of these improvements if the PID is not doing that. So we require that.
Because it's still on public land and you'd want it
Right,
maintained.
right. We're allowing them to make those improvements in the right of way with the stipulation that they have a backup, so to speak, if that pit is ever dissolved, to fund the mechanism.
And then one other question, then, if you had another group of people in the city that did not live in that area, but had interest in that public property, how would they have input into that process?
Well, that's a good question. There's two parts to that. There's, number one, we've had it asked, can we gate this area? Because we have people coming over here walking on our trails and those kinds of things. So what if we wanted to gate that? And you can't gate that because it is a public improvement district, and those improvements are in public right of way, which are for the enjoyment of the public.
And the board meetings of each PID are public open meetings. But anybody in the state can walk in there and attend and participate per their rules.
However, the assessments that go for the maintenance and operation of these things, it's only the property owners within that district that pay for those assessments. So they're the ones that really have the input through their board on, new improvements.
So is there a separate PID board and a separate homeowners association board, or is it all one and the same?
There is a separate public improvement district. You don't have to have a public improvement district advisory board, but it recommends that you do, and the city of Amarillo has always thought that that's a good idea to have that board so that that you have a body.
We only have one that does.
Right. The very first public improvement district that was established in Amarillo, Brennan Boulevard, they did not establish a board, and wish they would have, because we get a lot of phone calls from those guys because they don't have any other, they don't have anybody else to call. And that's why that board, normally what happens is anytime there's a public improvement district assessment increase or something, normally the PID boards are at the homeowners association annual type meeting, and they talk about all the stuff. I've been to several of those meetings where the PID board want to be there to explain to the homeowners association about all of this.
Okay.
But there are still people that live. I'm not going to say that every person that lives in a public improvement district actually knows they're in a public improvement district. But
I think it's their part.
Well, but they get bills for it.
It's on their tax bill. It's not tax.
Well, that's really one of the reasons I think the administration fee is important.
Yep.
If you're doing the billing, you've got to send it back, you've got to deal with all that. How do you deal with collections on those if collections are poor?
for Randall County, for those in Randall County, we have an agreement with Randall County. They put those assessments on your tax bill, and you get it with your tax bill, and you pay the county, and then we get reimbursed from the county. The ones that are in Potter County, they're and those contracts that we have with Randall County aren't cheap either. And the few that we have, well, we're getting more, but the ones that we have in Potter County, they're small. They're so small that we still feel like it's fiscally better for them to. We do our own assessment letters and we mail it out. We have 25 people in Quail Creek. We just mail them a letter and they send the money directly to us.
But you don't remit anything that isn't sent in. I mean, you only remit back to the PID whatever is collected.
Right. Yeah.
So in Quail Creek, it's not on their annual tax?
No. Anything that's in Potter County, we did not have as a matter of fact, we checked, Dean probably on there. We checked with Potter County, and we're getting to a point where maybe we do need to talk to Potter County, but we checked with Potter County a while back on what it would cost, and it was something very new for them, and I think they were a little leery of it, and their estimate of what it would cost, they would charge us was substantial, and we just felt it was a better deal for the property owners to just go ahead and handle that ourselves for the time being.
Like the Point West PID that's in Potter County, it's geographically large, but there's 4 owners?
And there's about like 7 now.
So
Homeowners there?
the
Property.
no, it's a commercial one.
That was
Points
West.
Points West, got it,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. That's her.
In the Quail Creek Street.
Quail Creek's about
24. They're really
24.
It's a short, its budget's not much bigger than the collection fee for copies.
Was that fee in '09, is that, or 10, the 3,448, is that what you used to pay the county to do that, contract that?
Well, we have the 34, the administration fee. If you look under the administration part of that, there's $450 for the public notices that have to go to the newspaper. Then we have the 4496, which is what you're talking about. That's actually what we pay to Randall County.
But you've always recouped that, it looks like, in the whole budget.
Yes, yes.
You
it's
just
all-
didn't have any administrative, so really the administrative fee is the 32,000.
Right, that is directly attributable to our time spent, and I can tell you, and Carolyn will attest to this, we spend a lot of time on public improvement districts.
I guess you don't know this, but I wonder how much that is per homeowner, or person.
I can't think of that off the top of my head, but I mean, we know the number of property owners, but colonies, the way the assessment for the colonies, the assessment method for the colonies is you get charged .0525 per square foot of your lot area. Okay, so you have a total, and then we have.
Take them to the debt service.
Right, and then we have, for colonies and greenways, their PID petitions allow the developers to request reimbursement for the improvements that they make in the public improvement district. We will do that if we have enough revenues available to pay them back. So far, in the colonies, we've had 2 debt issued, 2 bonds that have been issued. And so we also, in those bonds, have the proceeds from those bonds have gone to repay that portion of the public improvements that the developer has made. It hasn't paid him off yet, but it has repaid. He has recouped some of his cost for that, and then we roll the debt service payments into the total maintenance and operation and administrative fees as well. So he hasn't been reimbursed in a while, but if he ever gets enough rooftops out there, if we ever get enough assessment revenues to be able to cover it, he does have the ability to request a reimbursement, and then we look at that and we make sure, very sure, that we've got enough revenues coming in to address, number one, the maintenance and operation of the PID, and then secondly, do we have enough surplus or revenue coming in to make those debt service payments.
So the PIDs, are they established when the development is taking place, or was this like an afterthought that's made into a PID?
This one was established, all of them have been established as they were developed in the beginning of the
Everybody
development.
knew they were going to have a PID. Okay.
Is that assessment based on square footage of land, not building?
Lot.
It's a lot, so if there's nothing on it, they're still getting assessed.
Right. And that's significant because a lot of times the developer, he'll plat 150 lots. As soon as any property is platted, it's subject to assessment. And a lot of times that developer's footing the bill for quite a bit. So they really look at when can they sell their lots.
Can he add that back to his future clawback,
No,
this reimbursement?
not for the assessments wouldn't be, it's all for the improvements.
Yeah, once they have debt, you really can't dissolve it, because we'd have to at least get an assessment to cover the debt.
Yeah, once we issue debt on that, the PID's pretty much locked in until that debt's retired.
And you need 50% of the owners to agree to implement. And is that based on square footage or population?
Assessed value.
Well, there's a two-prong. You have to have signatures that represent at least 50% of the ownership of the area, and signatures that represent 50% of the area or the appraised value.
And most of them are put in place when there may only be one
Right.
owner.
And that's why I just am thinking about this downtown thing, and I'm like, does that pass?
Now, putting a pit in an existing area, just, you know, is a little more complex process, getting to all the different ownerships.
Okay.
And for property owners that you may get a call, I had no idea I was in a public improvement district. And we require, when these things are formed, that in big, bold type, if anybody wants to request to form a public improvement district, we require them to show us their CCRs that in big, bold type say you are buying property that is located within a public improvement district and are subject to assessments. And that is in the title documents that they get when they get title of that property.
And even the Texas Real Estate Commission standard form of contract now for residential property has an affirmative box. Is this property in a public improvement district, yes or no?
Just had to fill it out in the seller's questionnaire.
That's it, yes, sir. That's now part of their standard real estate documents.
Some people
If
don't
they
notice
go
it
through
though.
that, they use
They're
it.
just so happy to be there.
Yeah. So, and those are all great questions. So if you, the total expenses came to $354,133. The assessments for the residential properties on the sheet that you have here, you have, we had a total of 5,618,429 square feet of residential property, 354 square feet of commercial property, and then to the right of that you see that .0525 assessment, and then you have, so you multiply those two numbers and you get the assessment revenue of $294,968 and $39,919. What I want to point out is, and I'm glad that we caught it, is those two numbers are incorrect. Potter Randall Appraisal District, even though there were no new lots platted, we carried over just the same residential square footage as last year because there was no new lots platted. However, Potter Randall Appraisal District did adjust their residential square footage to match Colony, Rock Rose, the developers, to match his square footage, because when he plats the property, he keeps track of that. And there was a discrepancy between the two, and Pratt decided the best thing to do so that everybody's number matches, they decided to match his number. So they adjusted a lot of the property square footages from last year, and we basically we forgot to carry the new square footage to put that in instead of just carrying over what was last year. So I wanted to make a note that particular square footage, just to let you know, it was $5,618,429. It's now $5,637,792. The commercial square footage, that was just a calculation error. That we didn't add the right amount, and the correct square footage is 437,364
On the commercial.
on the commercial.
Now that affects the numbers, it looks like Trey on off or the other.
That's right. So given those new square footages, that's going to create a total assessment of what you show here is $334,886. That changes that number to $318,946, which changes the total collections from $333,000 to $317,351.
Say that again, the number again.
$317,351. So that's your actual total collections from the assessment.
But that won't change the motion that Lillian has made today.
Yes, it will.
Well, there's no numbers.
Yeah, there's no numbers.
There's no numbers in here on this ordinance.
Right.
Well, but they're attached, is this part of the exhibit A?
Yeah, I would.
It is part
As
of the
Exhibit A was amended.
Exhibit A must be as amended.
So she'll have to make a motion with the amended numbers.
Yes.
Well, but you don't have to define the number, you just have to say with the amended attachment A or what.
I would, if you're asking for my opinion, I would say, I think we would need it to at least say with the amending the total assessments from 334,886 to 318,946.
What was the first number, 334, I'm missing.
334 what?
886.
334,886 to 318,946?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And the assessment rate for 5 1/4 pennies stays the same. We're adjusting the square footage, deriving a new bottom line.
Yeah. Those are the only two corrections, but it changes, you know, the numbers that come from
And
it.
it changes every year forward, too.
And then that will change comparably all of the numbers for us for the 5 years.
Assessment value.
Don't get sick before the meeting.
I'm gonna look at.
What's that take the fund balance down to?
You don't have to
I'm gonna
deliver.
get into that here.
Oh, okay.
How come, you have a shortage, okay?
And for your second reading next week, we will have the corrected exhibit.
For the second
We have
reading?
that here.
You already have it?
We already have it ready for when it's, you know, your second reading. We already have all of that fixed. It's just that this went out in your
Corrected
packet.
and correct for you next week.
So my motion will be to pass ordinance number 7287 with an amendment on the assessment value from 334,886 to 318,946.
That's correct.
Okay, got it.
And the associated changes for the 5-year service plan, because that's what you
And
have to
associated.
approve the assessment, the budget, and the 5-year service plan.
Associated changes.
And I
to the
apologize
five-year
for that, but
plan.
it's good that we catch it now.
Okay, got it.
I also wanted to mention, if you keep going down, and I'm sorry to keep doing this to you, but if you keep going down, okay, you have the total collections of 317, 351. Underneath that, though, you'll see an operating reserve of 88,533 back on that 5-year service plan. We normally like to have a surplus available that equals an amount of 3 months operating funds. For the colonies, that figures $88,533. And basically how you get that is you just take that total and divide it by 12, get a monthly rate, and then times that by 3. So that's a 3-month operating reserve that we like to have. This particular year, given the assessments, our ending fund balance is $33,333. So we're about, with the new numbers, that fund balance is $17,472. So we're about almost $37,000 off of that 3-month operating reserve. We still have an ending fund balance after this budget of $17,472. But, so what you'll probably be seeing next year, I'm just telling you this, that's way below that 3-month operating reserve, and they're either gonna have to plat more lots next year, or they're gonna have to raise their assessments. They've never raised their assessments since the inception of the PID. They're the only ones that haven't. So I don't anticipate that to be a problem, but we have a healthy fund balance at the end of this fiscal year of almost $55,000. However, with the projected fiscal year budget next year, they're going to have to make some changes the following year to get that fund balance back up.
So normally during the budget process, you would have advised them already to project that and have the increase this year?
Well, they already knew that they were below their operating balance, but now with the adjustments, they're worse off than they were.
Okay.
So they're going to have to make some changes next year, either by way of new revenue via new lots or increased assessments.
How old is this bid?
We're thinking about 8 or 9 years.
They've never changed.
They've never had an assessment increase.
They make that determination, you guys just verify the numbers will work financially.
What, right, we give, Dean and his staff help us kind of recommend, looking at that, we look at the lots, they look at the revenues, and we say, we're looking at, and then along with the numbers, we say you're either gonna have to plat new lots or do something.
Okay.
Okay, well, since you got it down pat now.
We'll go through the rest in a breeze.
The next one is the Point West Public Improvement District. It's a commercial public improvement district. It's where the Blue Cross Blue Shield call center is. A couple of, there's a new hotel that's going in there. But if you the same thing, if you look at their 5-year service plan, under the 2011-12 column, they had a beginning fund balance of almost $31,000. But the total maintenance for that property is $34,590. Total that plus the administration fee totals $42,491. So that's their total maintenance and operation budget. Their assessment method is based on a particular property owner's percentage of property of the entire district. So it's not a square footage, per lot charge. It's just the total operation, or the total maintenance and operation is $34,590. They just divide up that number based on the percentage of property that you. So if you owned half the land out there, you would be responsible for half that amount. However, given that, the board there, property owners there, they've been charging an assessment to property owners that equals $52,000 just to build up their surplus. They'd like to have a little cushion if anything should go wrong or that type of thing. So that's why you see their fund balance building up, and they'd like to keep it that way until they see a reason to change otherwise. With the number of property owners out there, they all agree to that. So,
Okay.
even though that assessment amount is over and above maintenance and operation, that's the way they want to do it. Any questions on that one?
So then you last year, Kelly, that y'all were going to charge this administration fee. You charged part of it last year.
We charged part of it last year, and like I said, we talked about it 2 years before that. The next public improvement district is Tutbury. It's a little cul-de-sac in the Colonies area, but it's not within the Colonies public improvement district. This is a little 24-lot subdivision that has entryway feature and medians and a brick wall along 45th. And that's, so those are their public improvements. Under their 2011, if you go to the 5-year service plan, under the 2011-12 proposed budget, total maintenance is $25,846. And the administration fees, you see right under that with a total maintenance and operation budget of $28,617. I wanted to point out, if you look under that, and also let me just quickly mention that greenways and colonies are so big and they have so many improvements and maintenance areas that the city is still involved in actually contracting that work out to a contractor or landscaper that does all of that. Everybody but those two PIDs are small enough to where we have disengaged basically our Parks and Recreation doing the work and letting their homeowners association just take over, and they hire who they want, have them do what they want. All we do as a city is we administer the bills. They send us the bills and we pay the bills, and we do this part. So that's why you don't see near the numbers as far as the administrative or the maintenance costs. You've got a water bill electricity bill, and then you have the, I believe here at Tutbury, it's Northrop's Landscaping that does all of their maintenance, and that $8,700 you see there is just that contract, and that's what he charges. So, given the total maintenance and operation of $28,617, their assessment went from $549 to $679,000 or $679. That's a $130 increase, and that's a big increase. And the reason for that is, if you see up there in the maintenance and operation, there's a $15,000 line item for lights. They're having some real problems with their lights that were initially installed there. It's a decorative light. Some of them are falling over, some of them don't work, and they want to replace those. And so they have agreed to use their existing fund balance plus this increase in assessments to try to fund that, which again gets into a negative fund balance. However, we're proposing after we get past this year, that's just a one-year line item, and so then the assessments would get them back to on the road to a normal surplus, but they have to do something with the lights.
Well, Kelly, would it be correct to say they end up with a fund balance of just under 3,000, where they're going negative as compared to the
surplus
reserve?
Right.
They still have $3,000.
They still have $3,000 in their fund balance, but it puts them in a negative, almost $4,000 under what we would normally like to see for their operating reserve. I've been told that here that they know about this increase, so hopefully there won't be anybody out there wondering, you know, how come because we also, you know, send notices out for these hearings, and so they should be aware of such a large increase.
What's their total assessment?
$679 per person.
$130 increase.
Okay.
We'll remind about the lines again here.
Pardon?
We'll remind about the lines if they're
I'm trying to recall if under the circumstances in the past few years, have we had anybody come up and want to take on the city on these regards, not realizing that they've been a pit board?
We did from Tutbury, I believe, but it's been probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Did we send them back to their pit board? Okay.
You know,
To their realtor and their seller.
City staff does not program those improvements nor what they're going to do.
Well, and actually that really kind of started the wheels turning it back over to them, saying, okay, if you guys, there was some issue with, there was a master gardener that lived there that thought she could do a much better job with the interior features and plantings than we were doing. And basically we said, if that's your wish, then that is perfectly fine with us. And so we will pay the bills. You hire whoever you want to do that. So that's when it went back to them. And that was they had several people up here. The only other one that I can think of is, of course, we get the phone call every now and then about, you know, I see this assessment and, you know, what's that for? And, you know, I've noticed there's a light out over here, and, you know, that kind of thing. So we take those calls all the time. The only other one that I can think of is we were establishing Quail Creek Public Improvement District, and we just estimated what their assessment or their costs were going to be, and it was kind of a high assessment. And the residents, they said that there's no way near that it's going to be that much, because we're not going to have flowers, we're just going to have sod. So we re-estimated the numbers and knocked theirs down to about $200 or $300. But other than that, we really haven't had anybody really coming up here really angry.
Good explanation of all this.
Well, some of you, this is kind of new, and I know it can be kind of confusing because each PID has a different assessment method. But basically, we as the city just have to approve every year their assessments, their annual budget, and then a 5-year service plan.
Who decides on their watering schedule, if they're watering even odd days?
Well,
You do.
Greenways and colonies, we're involved with that. And we are going to start to try to do a better job of making sure that if we adjust any type of watering schedules, that we contact the homeowners association or the developer before we make any of those kind of changes. We didn't do a very good job of communicating recently on when we kind of cut back some watering, but other than those two, they're responsible basically for all of their, all of their landscapers are aware of where those controls are, and they adjust that. But on the colonies and the greenways, we're still responsible for that.
Okay.
The developer colonies has been very good to work with us. Someone pointed out the timing of the operation of the fountain, and he was very quick to you bet with us.
And that's recirculated water. But
And
he was very.
It is recirculated, but it's.
Because it was
it's
running at
interference.
high peak times.
Well, they've adjusted that fountain 3 times. First the wind was blowing the water out, so then they adjusted for that, and seems to be a little bit of a learning curve on how to make that work best in this environment, but I think they pretty much got it worked out now. It's a pretty entryway.
And Tudbury does not cross over into colonies anyway, it's separate.
Inside the greenway.
Is that the only thing south of 45th that's separate? Is everything else in colonies right up to the?
Basically, if you know where Van Winkle is, if you follow it's in general, Colony's Public Improvement District is south of Van Winkle. It doesn't take in some of the property along Coulter, but pretty much everything else is the remainder of the section. Greenways is the entire section. More than you ever wanted to know about Pitt, right?
Uncle, it's okay.
Next go around, we will have some more questions.
Well, there's more to come, and of course, those will be back for a second read next time.
Yeah.
Mayor, if I could, on item 5, I would like to ask the Commission's indulgence to defer or to table the revised drought contingency plan for one more week. We've had some excellent comments submitted. Commissioner Eads, we're working on that. Staff's just not quite as far on that as we would like to be in terms of you taking action on it. Of course, you do have a drought contingency plan in place today that's still in full force in effect until we get this one done.
So we're going to pull this one down today.
Do we have to take action to defer, Counselor?
Discuss with the mayor, you can table it till next week if you want to keep it actively on your agenda. You can simply cancel.
And take no action today. So what you gonna do?
Yep.
Your eminence?
With that, Mayor, I'll move us to item number 6, being resolution public hearing. We set the date for this hearing here about 3 weeks ago. We have 2 properties that are going to come to you. I'll give you a bit of a preview on both of them. We'll have photographs that will run once we get into the meeting. The first one is at 1014 Northwest 3rd, a wood frame pier and beam with some concrete slab, single-family residence. This is a property that the file begins in May of 2001. This property was actually condemned on September the 19th, 2006. However, prior to the demolition beginning, the owner at the time did obtain permits to rehabilitate the property. Those permits were ultimately renewed. They were ultimately expired. There was a small amount of plumbing work that was completed, but the certificate of occupancy was voided because there were other life safety issues from those expired permits that they did not address. Structure's open, vagrant to criminals, all kind of fun stuff. There have been subsequent modifications to the plumbing, mechanical, and electrical system, all of which have been done without permits, all of which are substandard and unsafe. We've been working to notify this owner since August the 10th, 2010. There are no active building permits. There are both current and delinquent taxes that are owed. Water to the property's been off for a little over 18 months. So we'll show you that one when we get out there.
I think in honor of former city manager Alan Taylor, we ought to use the term attractive nuisance to describe it.
You saw that she would
Please
not
don't.
use
That's actually a
attractive.
legal term of art that gets Marcus all, I'm not going to say excited after what y'all said this morning, but
What does that mean?
That's what Alan always used to call these kind of properties. He would call it, they attract vagrants and crime.
Oh.
He would call them an attractive nuisance. And I was always like, what does that mean?
A bunch of those all over the city.
Drive by this, you won't call it attractive.
that is a legal term of art.
It
That's
always
what
made
I
me
mean.
laugh whenever he was, can you imagine calling these properties an attractive nuisance?
You have a swimming pool in your backyard and you don't put a fence around it.
It's an
And
attractive nuisance.
that's legally an attractive nuisance, and you've accepted liability when the kids get in there.
And they're gonna do this.
How about I say substandard? I said substandard, sir.
Piece of crap.
Moving right along to
Those
the
are actually man's
second,
another man's castle.
moving to the second property. You can refer to your map that shows you where that is. This is an accumulation of rubbish, trash, solid waste, and/or unsanitary matter, and matter shall remain undefined.
It's out in the middle of the pasture or something.
It's hard to tell where it is. You can-
Yeah,
So there's all, it's
you'll
where that
see
big
some
church is up in
pictures.
Northeast 24th. There's vacant
Now,
land behind there.
and I'll be sure that the appropriate city employee is chastised, but the condition of the property is that it is an attractive nuisance and encourages additional illegal dumping, so. Ms. Covey, help me deal with that. Again, this is just an accumulation of solid waste, and we need to get it out of there. We've been working on this property since August of 2009. Initial notices were sent June the 12th, 2010, continuing on through the recent months. Quite a few pieces and parts of ownership to this property. In fact, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different sets of notices that we've been trying to serve for the property. There are no current taxes owed, although there are delinquent taxes for years past. No water service to the property. We have been on the property on October the 9th to mow it, October the 9th of 2009, June the 11th of 2010 to mow it, and again on July the 13th, 2010 to mow it. Of course, it actually rained that year, so that's what that is.
Hey, really, does it take 2 years always to do something like this, or just because this one was more difficult than normal?
2 years is fast tracking.
And Marcus and the building safety folks are working on a way to streamline this. Well, it's too easy to play games with it.
Well, yes, that's exactly right. But I must tell you, and you may actually read something about one of your TML magazines, that Texas Supreme Court did us no favors about 3 or 4 weeks ago. A case out of the city of Dallas. They have made it more difficult. City attorneys around the state, we're still coming to grips and analyzing what did the court say and how do we work around it, frankly, regarding condemnations. It has to do with notices and we can declare them. I think when it all shakes out, and we're just about there, I think Amarillo's going to shake out okay with it because these decisions come to you, the city commission. Many, perhaps most cities, those decisions are made by an administrative board appointed by you on whether to condemn. And the court really took the city of Dallas to task on that. Of course, you can imagine, can you imagine the number of properties they have week in, week
But they'll
out?
spend 2 hours every week's meeting.
Absolutely, at least. And so they have administrative boards. But anyways, just to say, your observation is right on. This has taken a long time. When you see a list of 7 to 8 owners, and some of them are out of state, some of them are deceased, some of them are probate, some of them are foreclosure mortgage companies, it's very difficult to meet all the legal requirements. But we're going to take some steps, do what we can, given this recent Supreme Court decision, try to streamline our process to the extent that we can. It's a legitimate concern, for sure.
city.
Well, it is.
Well, you see the pictures, it'll make you sick. Yeah.
It's probably been a year since we've had any before the body.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
It's probably been a year since we've had any active ones before you. Next item, item number 7, second and final read. This is the rezone on Southwest 58th and Danny Street. This is that area across from your new fire station number 12 for the apartments. Kelly, any changes?
No changes.
No changes. Any questions? All right, consent agenda. Item A, purchase of modular playground equipment to Total Recreation Products. This is to install a new, or not to install, but to purchase the new play structure and the swing set for Hamlet School Park. The picture that's back there is a typical picture. That's not exactly what this is
I
going
was
to
about
look
to
like.
say, that looks like something in the picture that belongs in a hamster cage.
Yeah. That's, as you can tell, a rendered picture.
But that's a fancy camera.
Well, you expect to see the little tubes come out the side, you know.
Just to kind of complete my background knowledge, the cost of this is $33,000. How much does it end up costing for the actual disability kind of handicap play surface and the installation? Is it double the price, triple the price?
I don't have that answer exactly. The play surface is twofold. Part of it is the safety fall surface. It's pretty much the same, you know, regardless of where we put it. The ADA part of it, we now use those big sections that look kind of like a rubber sidewalk. I don't know if that's the proper description, but they come in panels and we lay them down and hook them together, and it provides access to the ADA point on the play structure. So you have a to and a from for that. The remainder of it still has the same fall material that everybody else does. Item B, computer hardware. This is part of this year's replacement, 85 desktops, 5 laptops. These are existing units. They're not additions to the inventory. How many desktops do y'all service now, Tony?
1550 total.
How many computers in our mobile environment now?
150. She's
He's making it up.
I'm teasing.
Just remember those numbers because we'll get to their budget here before too far along. Item C, purchase of a landfill compactor. We're replacing a 2007 model machine that's just not serviceable. This is the same machine we brought to you several weeks ago to try to get the steering components rebuilt. Basically, at this point, that's not good money spent, and the recommendation is it actually would have been replaced next year anyway. Go ahead and accelerate it, get it replaced. We'll have it in first of next year, and we have a buyback on that existing machine of $146,500.
That's great.
And I think we put a picture in there. We put a picture of the one we're buying, not the one that's broken.
Did we spend the money on the repairs?
We spent the first part of it, yes.
And then found out it just wasn't being repairable.
Still got pretty good trade.
We did the repairs and found that additional repairs on it. It was one of those situations, the deeper you get into it, the more you find.
Well, we have 2 of those machines, and they have got to run. You've got to keep the trash beat down, you've got to keep it covered up. So we've got to have them, and they've got to be reliable. To give you an example, a picture on that page, that thing weighs 82,000 pounds. That's big stuff.
But it has to be covered every night.
Yes, sir.
Every night.
Yes, sir. According to our permit with the state of Texas, that's correct.
Now, our other compactor's pretty new.
Fairly. Yes, sir.
It's the one that we got replaced from the fire.
Burned down.
Insurance company helped us buy a new one. Looking at it, you can't imagine you burn something like that down. Item D, downtown bus benches. This is the 19 bus benches that will be installed specifically in the downtown area. They are specifically being selected to match those purchased by Potter County. In fact, they're being bought off the same contract, 80/20 purchase between FTA, Federal Transit Administration, and the city. There's a picture in the back.
These are the ones with the divider in the middle.
They will have the divider in the middle.
Schematic shows.
Yeah.
And those will be used other places downtown, not around Potter County.
Correct, at bus stops.
Yeah.
At bus stops downtown.
I must say that the other bus stops you're putting in look really good.
They look great.
I don't mean to interrupt, but has anybody ever seen where our old bus benches went?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're for sale. You want to buy
Has
one?
anybody sold it?
We can make you a deal on one.
I haven't seen them.
They're out there by Stanley's.
Cadillac Ranch.
What do they ask you?
What was I running?
Big pile of them for sale sign.
They're west Arnott Road, on the south side.
Yeah, when you were
I don't know, but there's got to be
Fire
200
ranges are out there.
Put them in your backyard.
There we go.
You want to collect
What's
vintage
that?
advertising?
That's
Nostalgia.
right. Getting a little nostalgic, put that in.
All the hours you've waited.
Yeah.
Item E, purchase well motor electrical cable. We're short one roll of electric cable to keep an inventory for the 2 spare well motors that we keep, so that's what this is.
It's good.
Item F, airport asbestos removal contract. Things are moving right along on Concourse 30. Everybody is out, almost everything is out. We need now to go in and get the remaining asbestos out of that part of the building so that they can bring it down.
Coming down happens a lot faster than going up.
Coming down's a lot faster.
And it's kind of fun to watch. Watch them do the other one.
I'm pretty impressed that the guys that estimated this, they estimated it at $90,000 3 years ago. It came in at 62.
I was gonna say, it seems like it's gotten less expensive.
So we've had a real good run on the asbestos bids for probably the last 12, maybe 18 months. It's really been coming down. When you get more than one bid. Get more than one bid. Item G, engineering services addendum for the Osage Combined Pump Station project. As you'll recall, that's the great big project that's going on in the southeast corner of the water treatment plant. That's a project that was funded entirely through the 0% stimulus money that the city was awarded.
Shovel ready.
Shovel ready, and they used some big shovels. That project was under budget the day we started. In fact, if you'll recall, we awarded a very significant change order the same day we awarded the contract, and that was to add that extra generator to it to help more fully power it when the time was off. There's still significant money remaining in that contract. You're very restricted as to what you can do within those funds. What we would ask your permission to do is to have HDR Engineering, the person that's on the job today, help us with the design necessary to bring in a line that would connect this pump station direct to the Northeast 24th pump station. It's only phase 1 of it, but it's a good and valid use of those funds. It will benefit the system certainly next spring. When Potter County's fully online, they're able to shuttle that water back and forth. So we intend to fund the other 2 parts out of the WIF money that's up in the well field, but that's not necessarily the topic today. Questions on that one? Item H, change order number 1 in the Potter County well field, specifically to the pump station contract. This is Archer Western. This is who's building the large pump station and the associated tanks up there. This is really, since I'm not supposed to say appurtenances anymore, I'll say this is pieces and parts. This is just to account for field conditions actually discovered during construction, and to have them set in place, a flange and a blank, where eventually there'll be a really large water meter that's just hasn't been delivered yet. Project's still under budget. The award of that change order.
You know, as I was going through this, it just had such a huge impact to know that we're doing this where other communities won't have the opportunity to be talking about this. I mean, how lucky are we? Good planning. Good planning.
Well, you should see some more next week on this. We've got some ideas to speed some stuff up. Item I, acceptance of your 2011-2012 Bioterrorism Public Health Preparedness Grant. This is what you'll commonly hear referred to as the BT grant. This is where we plan, prepare to respond, prepare to recover from things requiring our public health department to go in. We use this to stockpile certain items that could be used in event of an emergency. This is the point of contact for Strategic National Stockpile, or the SNS. That's where the federal government and the CDC have large amounts of equipment, medicine, and things like that that they would release in an emergency if needed. We are taking a 16% cut in the funding for this program. Wouldn't be surprised to see that continue to go down in the future. Everybody quiet. We weren't out today? Okay.
We're just getting started.
Let's move, no, there's truth to that. Let's move to item 9. Today, you will have David Wallace and Joe Esch from Wallace Pajali Development Partners, representatives from downtown Amarillo, and I think importantly, you will have, I believe, the entire team that Wallace Pajali has put together as you prepare to make your decision to proceed forward with these projects. They'll be here to do a presentation to introduce themselves. I know the hotel operators are here, officials from the Ball League, and others will be here. Mayor would suggest we stay in the order that's posted. I think your action agenda will be reasonably prompt. I'm told this presentation should take about an hour.
Really?
No, sir.
I'm just gonna listen.
Okay, anything else?
Here again
Gosh,
tomorrow.
we can go in
Boards
there
and
at any
commissions,
time.
or we gonna?
Right?
We only have today and this morning.
Jared, are we gonna look at, I know it's the library board, we have somebody, we haven't looked at that.
We have some time. If you would like to convene a closed session and look at some boards and commissions, we could certainly do that. It's just a little after 2:30.
And we don't have to do it this week, I was just wondering if we could do it next week. I didn't know what.
Well,
the
we've
schedule
got,
was.
we got a little time.
Whatever, yeah.
You know, we've,
I've got a
Library board
couple
and
of
the
folks.
environmental.
right. And I don't know that we've covered any discussions on parks and rec,
No, we
but
haven't.
we need to do that. One of your parks and rec folks is eligible for reappointment. The other two have turned out.
Who's turned out?
Daniel
Manuel
and Brian
Brian Scott.
So they can't be reappointed. Okay.
I know we've got a couple of names
I've got
submitted to the library
Submit.
boards. We've got some suggestions possibly for the environmental committee. And we're still just holding on the hospital district.
One of the things, I don't know if we mentioned orientation, if it's an advisory board with no quasi-judicial or final decision-making authority, they just make recommendations, those are public discussion, we can't go into close for that. But if a board does have quasi-judicial decision-making, or they are a final decision-making body, then we can go into closed session. I don't recall making that distinction. Yeah, I was looking at this
Yeah, I
list.
didn't
The
know.
bottom three are all pretty much advisory, I believe. Environmental Advisory Committee, Library Board, and the Parks and Rec Commission. Your first two that are listed do definitely have final decision-making authority, and those are closed session.
Parks have some rule-making authority.
I would need the
Evan,
check.
tell me again, why did
I've
David
seen all that.
resign? Simply because he's your spouse?
That's what they said at City Hall.
Sometimes City Hall isn't right.
That's what they told me.
That's probably true, Joe.
That's what Michael Wright, Mr. Rice over there told him, I think. So,
I bet they're correct.
yeah, it was, you know,
Made sense.
yeah, he's just happy to follow the rules. Not that he didn't love being on it, he just, you know, far be it from him to be
Okay.
a troublemaker.
And I'll be glad to go get the names from previous discussions if y'all would like.
Well, and like I said, I have other names. One of them wants to serve on the
I
library
bring up the
board.
job description, otherwise, for Parks
We've also got
It costs them $5.
a new charge to
I think they
the
have
environmental
rules for
advisory
them.
committee.
The what?
We've got a new
Within the
charge to
structure
the
of the
environmental
ordinance,
advisory
but I think
committee.
they have some rules.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, you'll be
Well,
wrong.
let's determine which ones we're gonna talk about, so we see about
Let's talk about the environmental committee and the library committee. We resubmitted the resolution that would reauthorize the environmental advisory committee. I think it incorporated, previous efforts, previous discussions. Anybody have any thoughts or comments on the structure of that ordinance?
We approved that last
I mean,
week.
that resolution. It's not an ordinance. We did not approve it. When we approve it, we need to put the names in it.
It included stuff that from what I recall last week, that I
Yes, ma'am.
suggested. Okay, that's good.
It did. Okay, so give me just a brief moment. I'll go grab the names that I think have been turned in for that. We'll talk about them, we'll talk about library.
I've been sitting too long today.
Yeah, my,
We're all limping.
well, it just get all stoked up, and we're gonna sit in there again.
That's fine.
We're all up there.
Tricky.
Wait, if this is Tuesday, let's keep the city.
That's when it really, really falls upon you, Jim, is to keep them in line,
Who?
the audience.
Okay.
You know what, are you gonna, after the hour presentation, are you gonna ask for comments from us or comments from the community first?
I hadn't thought about it. I didn't us first.
Well, we'll just go, whatever.
Well, and Marcus clarified in that deal, so it's on the deal, we can talk about anything we want at the end of that. After the presentation from Wallace Pajali, we can ask, discuss anything.
Anything about downtown?
Yeah.
I've got these frequently asked questions.
If we have somebody, we're gonna keep that at 3 minutes if we have public comment on
Yeah.
those.
Sure we would.
And then, okay,
But commissioners aren't held to the limits.
no, there. But I imagine they will anyway. He's searching, right?
Yeah.
Take a break for a second.
You may have to help him, like, laying hands on all of them.
Name?
Well, we had your Amber.
For
Amber Spencer, Indiana.
the Environmental Advisory Committee, the new names that I had heard were Terrence
That was it.
Correct.
Ing,
Uh,
spelled N-G,
Okay.
and then I had Amber Spencer,
Right.
Angie Hanna.
and she's the gardener.
I didn't have Angie Hanna,
I didn't either.
but I know her.
And then did I have Barbara Whitten?
Oh, yeah, Barbara Whitten. Yeah.
I have talked to the others. I've talked to Amber Spencer, and I've talked to
Terrence.
Terrence, but I've not, and I know Angie Hanna. Who's the other one? Barbara Terrence?
Barbara
Spencer,
Whitten.
Barbara Whitten.
Barbara
Terrence
Whitten.
King.
And let me ask you one thing, since Keep Amarillo Beautiful has kind of gone with, there's been some interest in rolling over those functions to this committee. How do you,
Say it again, I'm sorry.
since Amarillo, Keep Amarillo Beautiful has kind of gone inactive, there's been some discussion about potentially adding those kind of functions and charges to this committee, but that was just an idea. And
Of
I
course,
just-
Really, the Keep Amarillo Beautiful stuff was more self-imposed. They weren't given a charge, were they?
No, sure.
No, it was Dusty.
Dixie.
Dixie, it was
Dusty.
Dusty.
Well, but did she recycle phone books and things like that?
Yeah, so there was kind of a while of a rollover into other areas.
She was holding the lead purse strings.
But she instigated those, the phone books and all that. The city didn't tell her to do that.
Yeah.
I might suggest that things like the phone book collection would be a good thing to put towards that committee. The Christmas tree deal was kind of superseded because Mr. Rice and his group accept the trees at the brush chipping sites. We ask that you take the lights off on them. I think that's
Not all
commonly
day.
done. But As far as the beautification efforts, those were very self-directed. I keep Amarillo Beautiful's leadership, and I'm not sure at this point if there's any remaining funding.
Jim could tell us that, but I was thinking there was still some.
I think it's been
I
drawn
think it's
way
the senior part.
down.
I think it's gone.
You know, they made a sizable contribution to finishing the senior part.
I know she was determined. Using that.
Paid for that gazebo that's in Palo Alamo.
That goes back some time, yeah.
Paid for a large part of the streetscape improvements that were done on Airport Boulevard.
It's where?
Airport Boulevard.
Yeah.
So, but certainly efforts like the phone book recycling would probably be very appropriate for that.
Has
And
anybody
just
heard
my
from
2
Dixie?
cents. Dusty.
Dusty.
Why don't I call her Dixie?
Yes,
She's
I've
off her
heard from
walking cane.
Dusty.
She has recuperated from her surgery.
I
Well,
talked to her last week. She's in good shape. She's
Yeah.
getting around.
Just don't have black
She
clothes.
had some interest in possibly, and I've shared this with Vicki, graffiti. But she's not sure she wants to get back in. She's enjoying her semi-retirement. And she's going to think about it and let Vicki know what her
what her
desire
role
would
should
be.
be.
She's a cool lady.
She is
The,
very assertive.
some of the repairs that she's had done, I think she's in better shape than she's been for years.
She's in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazingly so for,
Yeah, she recuperated from surgery.
Okay, what do we want
I'm
to
not
do? on
medically
this?
oriented.
We want to recommend some of these names now and then do it next week? or-
I would be glad to put this on for action if
I've
you
got
would give me
5
a list of names.
Let me read them, and then y'all.
This is for environmental.
Yeah, 5 is the people who've shown interest. I don't know Charon Singh, but you. it's-
I
you
talked to
brought-
him,
you
he
brought
wants to
Charon
do
Singh.
it. No,
Okay.
I didn't bring him up, you did, Brian.
You brought him up,
But he's
okay.
very interested in doing it.
Barbara Witness sent a letter of interest in the bio. Angie Hanna's done the same. Amber Spencer's done the same to Donna Duray. And Keith Grace told me last week that he was interested in doing this.
Amber Spencer I
But I don't
talked
know that he
to,
said anything.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Uh-huh.
Terrence I've talked to and Amber I've verified the conversations with that either of you had, they both want to do it. Nobody else.
And Keith expressed an interest in that.
Last week. And Barbara Wynn, I don't know that Keith has said anything. I haven't seen anything that he was, I told him he probably need to send a short letter and a bio to Donna and gave her that. Gave him that. I don't know that he did. I don't know.
If you wanted to, I think you have 8 names. If you reappoint Ms. Cates, Ms. Emily, Mr. Sawyers, and Ms. Benson. And then you add your 4, Terrence Ing, Amber Spencer, Angie Hannah, Barbara Whitten. And then we can contact Mr. Graves. And you can come back the following week and put him on, because that would give you 9, which would be an appropriate odd number.
Okay. I've got a number for him. If somebody like that.
For Keith?
You got the number? Okay.
So I need to call Keith this week and Barbara Witten, I don't have her number. What is Barbara doing?
Barbara's, well, I hate to say this, but she's married to Jim Whitten. I don't actually, introduce people as who they're married to. But she works at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church.
I think I've met her.
And she
She
was
was
on
there
the
at
League of
the-
Women
Oh, that's
Voters.
nice.
She was the League of, she's
And
on.
she was at she was at
She
the
was?
presentation.
She works with my wife.
She was at the water presentation over at St. Andrews.
Yeah, here's her number.
Yes, she was. She was one of the coordinators of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Angie Hannah, I need her, I know.
Okay, Barbara's number, 236-3999.
Can I use the term my wife, or is that kind of
No, that's, as long as you don't identify her
This
as
person who has a name similar to
existing
me.
because you're wife.
existing because she's my wife?
How about Angie
Forget
Hannah?
it.
You're not gonna
It's a
get-
feminist thing.
I don't have Angie Hannah's number here right now.
Good. I thought the term spouse, is that pejorative?
It's appropriately gender neutral.
A woman who belongs to me, how about
Old lady.
Now we're talking.
that?
Let's move on.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Do I hear the wish to put Environmental Advisory Committee on the agenda, and then we'll confirm up 8 or 9 names for
Tell you
next
how
week?
many we can reach out.
Okay.
Okay. That one will actually be a little different. It doesn't go in that boards and commission. It's an appointment by resolution, so we'll have that for next week. Okay, library board. I have the name of Rita Wilson.
Wilson, yeah. We've talked, she's been waiting for us to meet this.
She has been?
She's ready, yeah.
And
Right,
Sandy,
I talked
Already
to
talked to
her
her.
too.
Okay.
Sandy will go for
I'm
reappointment.
sure she will. I have no doubt she will.
And that's up to y'all, but
Good.
Ms. Ronnie's had 2 terms. And she's also been an excellent board member.
Who is it? I'm sorry.
Sandy.
Sandy Ryan, Tom
Oh,
She'll
Myers,
go
Sandy.
again.
She's on
roommate.
weightlifting partner.
She's your what?
Weightlifting partner.
Oh, I thought you said something about washing clothes.
Although that was a featured topic at the downtown meeting last
It
night.
was. It was. You got to be mentioned twice.
That's right.
Keith Graves, who
Keith
talked about.
Graves, that's
That's
right.
right.
I never knew I could do it. Thank you, Mayor.
Wasn't the only mention I got yesterday.
Yeah, no.
Would you like to see that on the agenda next week?
Yes.
Great.
So easy to criticize.
I know.
Okay,
So hard to
the
lead.
That's right.
Amarillo Hospital District Board of Managers is a closed session discussion, as is the Housing Finance Corp. Of course, that's a board we're holding back on. I believe that your Parks and Rec Commission has a limited rulemaking authority. You can either discuss them in open or in closed session.
Let's do those in closed. I would suggest.
Yeah.
You guys want to do it now? No, it's too late.
No, we'll be late again.
You want to do it next week?
Yes, because I have some names to submit.
Okay.
Good.
Y'all don't
Okay,
mind.
good.
Have you gotten any response on names we previously brought up for the hospital?
Did you want to
district?
submit anybody for the environmental advisory?
No.
Do you know? Because we sent the information, I just don't know if we've gotten any response.
I don't have any back.
You added some more docs to the list.
And in fact, the last, I think we, previous discussion had no's from the names that I had on the list.
Yeah.
Well, we made the ECAB appointment, that was Dr. Rick Quartz.
Yes.
And then the last one I had, the hospital district.
No, there's been another information issued.
We
Okay,
didn't know about
I may
that.
need you to catch me up on that.
We've issued, we sent information, we're just waiting for answers.
Okay, if it's come back, I've not heard it. All right, you have 12 free minutes.
Gee,
Great.
I don't know what I'm gonna do.
If you're really bored, we could come back and do some more budget.